Hi, I'm Renee Gorman, Senior Manager for the Market Analytics team at Allegis, and this is our 2026 Workforce Trends to Watch. I think a good place for us to start is a look back at 2025. And economists did expect a slowdown for the U.S. We knew that this wasn't going to be by any means a comeback year. And when I was reading through my notes from Q4 of 2024, the Philadelphia Fed did project that unemployment was going to be around 4.5%, and other economists did anticipate that the job gains would drop to about 75,000 per month. So the forecast heading into 2025 was really this gentle deceleration where wage growth was going to stabilize and the labor market was going to find a balance despite policy uncertainty. Because at the time, we knew who president-elect was, but we didn't know exactly how things were going to play out. Now, what occurred was a pretty solid start to Q1. When I was looking to our Acumen data, there was some real optimism in the air because we saw some pretty steady hiring for January, February into March. Now in March is when we started to hear about the rumblings of tariffs, and then in April is when the formal announcement was made, and that's really when companies shifted into this no hire, no fire mode. We saw job growth really slow through the summer months. I would say May and June were okay, but then in July, job additions plunged to 73,000, and then all those earlier months were also revised down. Now, we did see a slight little rebound in September, October, November. They weren't able to sustain that same momentum. But again, when I look to our Acumen data, we did hire more in Q4 than in Q2. So although I don't think we maybe ended on a high note, again, there was some nice optimism heading into the end of last year. Now, unemployment, it did hover around 4.2%, at least for the first half of the year. We all saw it rise to 4.6% in November, but I still don't think this is anything to be alarmed by. I would say 2025 was an overall stagnant labor market. Companies were definitely investing more in AI over people. And as a result of this, job seekers really felt that pinch. They just didn't have the confidence in the labor market. There was this fear of, if I were to leave my current organization, I'd be the last one in and then maybe the first one out if layoffs would occur. So everyone was sitting pretty tight. Wage growth did stabilize, but real wage growth, that only increased by 0.8%. So that just means that our dollar isn't going as far as it did 5+ years ago. Three major headwinds definitely shaped the labor market in 2025. There was certainly all of the policy uncertainty. Tariffs and immigration restrictions shook a lot of business confidence. High interest rates definitely cooled investment. And then there were some pretty obvious labor sector imbalances. The growth was really concentrated in healthcare, social assistance, and hospitality. We continue to see manufacturing and professional services kind of lag behind. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention layoffs. So there were over 1 million in 2025. That, of course, included the 300,000 federal workers. And then from a retirement standpoint, we do still have 10,000 baby boomers that are retiring daily. I also like to keep a close eye on the youth unemployment rate. So that's for folks between 16 and 24. Male youth unemployment rate right now is still pretty high at about 11%. So right now we kind of have this... We have ongoing labor shortages despite slower hiring. I would say bottom line for 2025, it by no means was a collapse. It just wasn't smooth sailing. It was definitely a year of hesitation. Businesses were being cautious. They were investing very selectively in tech. Workers, as I mentioned, did face a lot of uncertainty as a result. And then policymakers, they were juggling inflation control while also at the same time trying to drive growth. So, the big question, I think, for 2026 for the U.S. and North America is this year going to bring more clarity, or are we still going to have a lot of turbulence? And then in Europe, the labor markets in that region, they appeared strong, but there were also some pretty visible cracks. So growth was modest. In the Eurozone, there was about 1% growth, and then hiring was really selective. Despite record employment, skilled roles really remained hard to fill. And that created this paradox of high employment alongside vacant roles. And then there were some pretty stark regional differences as well. So Germany, they were at near full employment at 3.5%. Spain still faced 10% unemployment. And then the UK, they saw loosening. In fact, vacancies for them, they were down 44% since 2022, but employment, it did slightly decline. Cost savings continued to be a first priority for our customers, and they kept our analytics teams busy with a myriad of requests. So I went through all of our projects for 2025 and kind of came up with maybe our top 3 requests that we were receiving. And these are in no particular order either. Number 1, the cost savings playbook. That was a very popular product, and it's where our analysts are doing a very thorough review of a customer's data. They're diving into tenure and volume rebates and overtime management just to see which potential cost savings levers we can pull that are going to certainly make most sense for the overall business. Number 2 was comparative wage analysis. So this is where we're digging into wage trends. We're comparing rates by region and industry. To do this, we do leverage our Acumen data, and then we'll typically couple it with a few other data sources like Lightcast, and that's going to help provide us with that global purview across many, many countries. We do complete a lot of rate card analysis on an annual basis, and this was by no means any different for 2025. This is where we're going to analyze worker starts for the past 12 months, and then we're going to suggest small strategic adjustments to the rate card. And that's in an effort to make sure that we're keeping our customers' pricing competitive, but then also that we're helping to manage their overall spend. And then the third, the misclassification analysis, which continues to gain a lot of momentum. So this is where we're identifying roles that are filled under SOW that should have been classified as staff augmentation. We can help our customers realize a lot of cost savings by analyzing how hiring managers are going about buying and procuring their talent. In 2025, we saw a lot of investment in AI, but at this point, I think few companies have realized enough tangible benefits to call it a big success. But there definitely have been a lot of nice incremental gains. So when we think about the co-pilots, the chatbots, all of the reactive generative AI tools, I think the real opportunity in 2026 is to move beyond these basics to really transform workflows and onboard agents that are going to work alongside our employees. And in order to make this leap, companies are definitely going to need a mix of talent. They're still going to need the advanced technical skills. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. And when I looked at our data, there has been a 700% increase in machine learning engineer requisitions that have come through from our programs. Data scientists are also up. Not as much, it's 34%, but that's still on the rise as well. And then all the specialist type roles, so focus on AI ethics and regulatory compliance and risk management. We do also continue to see a lot of hybrid skill sets, so professionals who are combining that tech literacy along with the domain experience. So, for example, when you think about a financial professional, that's also going to have that predictive analytics experience. And then as AI continues to evolve and change, we're going to see more emerging roles come through as well. So whether it be the prompt engineering roles that are looking to really optimize AI outputs, we're still going to have high demand for change management leaders, AI product managers, and of course, learning and development experts. '26 will present a lot of challenges for business leaders, and based on my research, I've come up with kind of 3 standout hurdles. The first is going to be scaling AI and digital transformation, so making that move from the pilots to the full-scale integrations, and that's going to require all of the talent that I just mentioned. It's going to be that mix of high-tech talent and the domain experience to really deliver and implement. And this initiative kind of leads us to the second challenge, and that's making sure that we're hiring the right people. So companies are really going to have to focus on that targeted hiring and really seek out specific skills rather than the broad experience. And this is where we're going to help companies continue to make that shift from traditional recruitment to predictive talent strategies. And this involves really deconstructing the roles, so deconstructing them into tasks, going beyond that job description to really uncover every activity that's related to the role so that, again, we can make sure that when we're hiring people, they're going to be the right long-term fit for the organization. And then, of course, there's always going to be a lot of uncertainty. I think this is going to be something that's quite similar to what we experienced in 2025. So we're all going to be faced with the economic conditions, the policy changes. At this point, we still really haven't realized or have a true understanding of what the impact of tariffs is going to be on business. And then, of course, there's the geopolitical tensions that are just adding some additional complexity. There's quite a bit for organizations to navigate, and I don't see that changing in 2026. So looking ahead to 2026, I do still feel there are reasons for optimism. The US Fed, they cut interest rates 3 times in 2025, most recently in December. Now, there is an 80% chance that they're going to hold steady in January, but the reductions that were made last year should help to ease pressure on companies that may have delayed investment in hiring last year. And right now, I do also have a close eye on the housing market, which is poised for a rebound. Mortgage rates are averaging around 6%. So the National Association of Realtors, they're projecting home sales to jump by 14% this year. So I think we'll see more buying and selling, and that'll, of course, mean job creation. In fact, they're projecting about 1 million roles that are going to be needed. And those job gains are going to, of course, impact not only real estate and construction, but they could positively impact lending, insurance. We have to think about all the spillover into the local communities as well. So whether that be retail or restaurants and auto services. So for those industries who've felt like we've been in a recession since mid-2022, I think the activity from the housing market really helped to diversify economic growth and kind of assist with stabilization of the market. I don't think it's by any means going to solve all of our problems, but it should help with some momentum. And then in Europe, hiring is going to be even more focused. Companies aren't just looking for broad experience anymore. They're really zeroing in on specific skills. So in the European region, we're going to see AI playing an even bigger role in how candidates are screened. There's a lot of new EU regulations and legislation that are coming down the pike. They're going to impact exactly how hiring gets done. I do also think that flexible work is going to remain a hot topic. Skills-based credentials will continue to gain traction. And I think we'll see even more growth in sustainable energy roles, technology and automation. And this is all going to continue to reshape and evolve the European labor force. It's really going to evolve how organizations within those countries go about getting that work done. So this means that organizations are going to need to move fast. They're going to have to figure out how to balance innovation along with smart workforce planning.